It's a bullshit argument.
So Mehdi Hasan just systematically dismantled one of the most powerful conversation stoppers in American politics. The former MSNBC host, now running his independent outlet Zeteo, is giving people actual tools to counter Israel lobby talking points that have dominated discourse for decades.
I have been debating hardcore Zionists, Israelis, supporters of Israel for years now, decades. And the conversation always comes back to one line, one phrase, one talking point. Do you, or do you not, support Israel's right to exist?
This observation is spot on. The right to exist question functions as a rhetorical trap. It forces critics into a defensive posture where they're debating Israel's legitimacy rather than its specific policies. It's designed to end conversations, not start them.
If you don't support Israel's right to exist, you're an extremist. You're an anti-Semite. You want to wipe Israel and millions of Israeli Jews off the map. Even many critics of Israel are often left frantically conceding.
Exactly right. The phrase weaponizes anti-Semitism accusations to shut down legitimate policy criticism. Even seasoned analysts like Peter Beinart and Norman Finkelstein have fallen into this trap, spending precious time on abstract philosophy instead of concrete actions.
Yes, of course I support Israel's right to exist. But you don't have to concede on this point. And today, I want to share with you 3 arguments you can use if you find yourself stuck in a debate with someone who insists you recognize Israel's right to exist. Here's how you debunk their argument. Time for a debunking.
This is what makes his analysis so valuable. He's giving practical counter-arguments, not just moral outrage. His book, Win Every Argument, applies debate strategy to real political conversations that people actually have at dinner tables and workplaces.
Number 1, right to exist where? Where? Where does this right to exist actually apply? Because Israel is the only country in the world that refuses to define its borders.
This undefined borders issue is crucial. Israel's strategy of deliberate ambiguity means any recognition of its right to exist becomes a blank check for expansion. You're essentially endorsing whatever territory they claim tomorrow.
So if you want me to recognize Israel's right to exist, does that right of Israel's extend into Gaza, the West Bank, the Golan Heights, East Jerusalem, all of which are considered illegally occupied territory under international law, and yet all of which are claimed by the current government of Israel as Israeli land? So, right to exist where?
Every major international body, the UN, International Court of Justice, even the State Department's own legal advisors, considers these territories occupied. Recognizing Israel's right to exist there legitimizes what international law calls illegal occupation.
Number 2, what is this right to exist? Where does it come from? Because states don't have a right to exist. No such natural or legal right exists. People, individuals have a right to exist. Human beings have that right, not states, not countries.
This distinction is fundamental. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Geneva Conventions, all international law focuses on individual rights. The concept of state rights simply doesn't exist in legal frameworks. It's a propaganda invention.
States change their composition, their governing structures, their ideologies, their regimes, their borders all the time. They're not fixed for eternity. The USSR broke up into Russia and 14 other new states. Yugoslavia broke up into Serbia, Bosnia, Croatia, and the rest. Czechoslovakia split into Slovakia and the Czech Republic. What happened to the USSR's right to exist, or Yugoslavia's, or Czechoslovakia's?
These examples demolish the entire concept. If states had a right to exist, the peaceful dissolution of Czechoslovakia would have been illegal. Baltic independence from the Soviet Union would have been forbidden. It's an absurd standard applied nowhere else.
Does the UK have a right to exist? And if so, does that mean Scotland, for example, can never vote for independence? Would we say to Scots who voted in a referendum to be independent from the UK, sorry, you can't leave? That would be going against the UK's right to exist. Of course not.
The 2014 Scottish referendum got 45% support for independence. By 2024, polling shows majority support in many surveys. Under right to exist logic, this democratic self-determination would be illegitimate, exposing how ridiculous the concept becomes.
People have rights, not states. To be clear, there is no right for countries to exist, nor for countries to continue to exist. None whatsoever.
The UN Charter enshrines people's right to self-determination, not states' right to perpetual existence. International law recognizes that political arrangements change. What matters is protecting human rights through those transitions, not preserving specific governments.
And number 3, last but not least, if there is a right to exist, as they claim, does Palestine have a right to exist? Because last time I checked, Israel exists. As a matter of fact, it's a country with sovereignty. It's on the map with its undeclared borders. Over at the UN, it's Israel that's a full member state, not Palestine.
The irony is staggering. Israel has nuclear weapons, advanced military, full UN membership, diplomatic relations with 164 countries. Palestine has none of this, yet somehow Israel's right to exist is what needs defending.
And it's the US, by the way, blocking Palestine's right to exist at the UN as a full sovereign member state.
Under Trump, the US has vetoed Palestinian statehood bids multiple times since 2017. So America demands everyone recognize Israel's right to exist while actively blocking Palestine's actual path to existence. The hypocrisy is transparent.
The idea that in a world where Israel is genociding the Palestinians in Gaza, ethnically cleansing them in the West Bank, and blocking their legal right to return from refugee camps across the region, the idea that in that world, Israel's right to exist is the one we should be concerned about, and not Palestine's, is both ridiculous and, let's be honest, racist.
The scale is undeniable. Over 45,000 killed in Gaza, 700,000 displaced in the West Bank since October 2023, 5.9 million Palestinian refugees still stateless. Yet the discourse centers on Israel's abstract right rather than Palestinian survival.
This entire discourse is clear propaganda by supporters of Israel. Have you ever heard this phrase used in any other context other than in the context of defending Israel?
Never heard it about Russia despite Ukraine demanding recognition, never about China despite Uyghur genocide, never about apartheid South Africa. This phrase appears exclusively in Israel-Palestine discourse, proving it's propaganda, not principle.
Do we talk about Belgium's right to exist, Luxembourg's right to exist, South Africa's right to exist? Of course we don't, because it's all demonstrable bullshit.
Imagine demanding Belgium's right to exist while it occupied Luxembourg, or South Africa's right to exist during apartheid. The absurdity becomes obvious when you apply this standard consistently instead of selectively.
So don't be cowed when the right to exist gotcha is thrown in your face. Don't be browbeaten or intimidated or guilted into giving Israel a pass. That's what they want, a pass.
These 3 arguments, undefined borders, non-existent legal concept, and selective application, give people tools to reject the trap entirely. Don't accept defensive framing that puts you on trial for questioning specific policies.
But this isn't about Israel's existence, it's about Israel's actions. Its apartheid practices, its endless war crimes, and yes, its ongoing genocide in Gaza.
The genius of this rhetorical move is how it transforms policy debates into philosophical ones. Instead of discussing settlement expansion or blockade effects, you're suddenly defending abstract concepts. It's conversational misdirection at its finest.